Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive headfirst into what is honestly one of the most exciting quests in the tech world, becoming a full stack developer. And we're going to break it all down into a clear, step-by-step roadmap for you.
I mean, it really does feel like magic, doesn't it? You have this idea in your head, and somehow it turns into a living, breathing application that people can use anywhere in the world. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on all that. You'll see it's less about magic spells and way more about having a really solid architectural plan.
All right, so here's the game plan for today, our architect's journey. We'll kick things off with the digital blueprint, then we'll move on to crafting the user experience, powering up the engine room, connecting those two worlds, and finally, launching our creation for everyone to see.
You know, any great building, any great project, it all starts with a solid blueprint, right? And web development, it's exactly the same. Before we even think about writing a single line of code, we need to really understand the fundamental structure of what we're about to build. So at its core, the web is really split into two main parts. You've got the front end, that's everything you see, everything you touch and interact with. Think of it as the beautiful facade of our building. The interior design, all the stuff that makes you go, wow. And then there's the back end. This is the stuff you don't see. It's the engine room, the plumbing, the electrical grid, the foundation, all the heavy machinery that actually makes the whole thing work.
Okay, so how does this actually work? Like, when you type in a web address, what's happening behind the scenes? Well, your browser shoots a request out across the internet. It uses things like HTTP to ask for the site and DNS to figure out the server's address. It's kind of like a giant phone book for the web. Then a server, which is really just a powerful computer sitting somewhere, catches that request, finds all the files for the website, and zips them right back to your browser. And the craziest part? This whole round trip happens in milliseconds. It is literally the heartbeat of the entire web. All right, let's start with that visible part of our structure, the part that everyone actually sees, the front end. This is where we get to be artists and engineers, crafting the experience our users will see and touch, and hopefully love.
And it all starts with HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. The best way to think about it is as the skeleton, the structural frame of our building. It defines all the core parts. This is a heading. This is a paragraph. Put an image over there. It's not going to win any design awards on its own, but it provides that absolutely essential structure. So, your first mission, should you choose to accept it, is to build a super simple portfolio page using just HTML.
Okay, so if HTML is the skeleton, then CSS, cascading style sheets, that's the skin, the paint, the cool furniture, the interior design. It's what takes that raw, kind of boring structure and makes it look amazing. It handles all the colors, fonts, and layouts. And this is super important. CSS is what makes sure our site looks fantastic whether you're on a tiny phone, a tablet, or a massive desktop monitor. That's called responsive design. And these days, it's totally non-negotiable. So we've got our structure with HTML, and it looks great thanks to CSS. But it's just a static picture. It doesn't do anything. That's where JavaScript comes in. Think of JavaScript as the electricity, the plumbing, the elevators. It's what brings the whole building to life. Every time you click a button or submit a form or see a cool animation, that is JavaScript at work. It's also what lets a page update without you hitting refresh. A perfect project to really get the hang of this is to build your own interactive to-do list app.
Now, look, you could build everything from scratch with just those three tools. But for a really big, complex website, that's kind of like trying to build a skyscraper with just a hammer and a handsaw. That's where front-end frameworks come in. They are the power tools, the cranes, the nail guns. They give you pre-built parts and a solid structure so you can build huge applications way faster and with a lot fewer headaches. And one of the biggest, most popular frameworks out there right now is React. And there's a really good reason for it. React lets you build your user interface out of these small, reusable pieces called components. They're like Lego bricks. You can build a search bar brick, a button brick, and then you just snap them together to build a whole page. It's awesome. It also helps you manage the application's state, which is just a fancy way of saying its memory. It keeps track of all the data as things change on the screen. A really cool mission for this is to build a weather app that pulls in live data from an API.
Okay, as you're building all this cool stuff, you absolutely need a way to save your progress and, not lose your mind. That's exactly what Git and GitHub are for. Think of Git like an infinite undo button for your entire project. It's a version history that tracks every single change you make. And GitHub is the place in the cloud where you store that history, share it with the world, and work on projects with other developers. Seriously, this is a non-negotiable skill for any modern developer.
All right. So our front end, our beautiful building facade, is looking amazing. But now we need to give it power. It's time to head down into the basement, into the engine room, into the secure vaults of our application. We're talking about the backend. This is where all the real heavy lifting happens. And what's so cool is that the JavaScript you learned for the front end, you can use that same language on the server, all thanks to a little thing called Node.js. And when you pair it with a framework like Express.js, you can build the entire brain of your application. We call this brain an API, and it's what handles things like user logins, saving data, and talking to your database. A perfect first project here? Build a simple API for user logins.
So all that user information, all that data, where does it live? It lives in a database. And there are really two main flavors of databases to choose from, and this is a big decision. First up, you've got SQL databases, like MySQL. Think of these like super organized Excel spreadsheets. They have rigid rows and columns and strict rules. You'd use SQL when your data has really clear relationships, like users and their blog posts. Everything is neat, tidy, and predictable. Then you have NoSQL databases, like MongoDB. These are more like flexible filing cabinets. You just stuff documents in there. You'd pick NoSQL when your data is a little messy, or you think it might change a lot over time, or you need your app to scale up to handle tons of users. Knowing which one to pick is a huge part of being a backend developer.
Okay, let's be super clear about this. When you're dealing with user data, security is not just some feature you can add later. It is priority number one and absolute requirement. You can never store passwords in plain text. You have to hash them, which basically scrambles them so they're unreadable. You also have to verify who someone is, that's authentication. And then you have to control what they're allowed to do, that's authorization. Okay, deep breath. We've built the beautiful front end. We've built the powerful back end. Now comes the really fun part, wiring them together. This is that magic moment where we take two separate things and turn them into one single, seamless, fully working application. So here's how that connection actually works. It's a little dance between the front end and the back end. Step 1. The user clicks a button on the website. That action triggers an API call from the front end, sending a message back to the server. Step 2. The server, our backend, gets that message and goes to work. Maybe it needs to grab some information from the database. Step 3. The server sends that information back to the front end as a response. And finally, Step 4. The front end gets that new data and instantly updates the screen. That's the whole loop. And your big capstone mission to bring all this together is to build a full-stack blog application that does this exact flow. We did it. Our application is built. It's working perfectly on our own computer. Now it's time for the grand opening. It's time to launch this thing into the world so that anyone, anywhere can actually use it.
So deployment sounds scary, but it really just means putting your code on some special computers, servers, that are connected to the internet. For the front end, services like Vercel or Netlify make this almost ridiculously easy. It's like a few clicks. The back end is a little more involved, but this is where tools like Docker become an absolute game changer. Docker basically wraps up your entire application and all its little dependencies into a neat little box called a container. This guarantees that it'll run the same way everywhere, which totally solves that classic, frustrating, well, it works on my machine problem. And just like that, your project isn't just a file on your laptop anymore, it's live. It's on the internet for the whole world to see.
And there you have it, the full roadmap, the complete architect's plan, taking you from that first digital blueprint all the way to a global launch. The path is clear now. It's all broken down into these manageable steps and missions. So really, there's only one question left. What will you build first?